It's fall, it's leaf collection time, and that means it's time to start making leaf mold. I just finished covering my garden beds with the leaf mold that I made this year. And now it's time to start preparing for next year's leaf mold contribution. As you can see, it's mostly broken down. It's going to provide some good tilth to the soil, feed the organisms in the soil, and help the garden produce. The best part of making leaf mold is that it's really so simple. Everyone does the work for you in collecting the leaves. All you have to do is basically put it in a container to break down over the next year. The garden beds, the leaves that were there, I actually started those piles in November of last year, and they were just like this, all broken down, or leaves like this, that I then just put into a bin and let sit there for a year. I'm always careful about collecting materials that people put at the curbside, because you never know what they put on their lawns. And I'm mostly an organic gardener. I'm not religious about it, but I try to be as organic as possible, hence why I make my own leaf mold to feed my soil. But like with grass clippings, you don't know what kind of herbicides or people put on their lawns, and I don't want to take that. But with a tree leaf, it's a pretty safe bet. You're not going to get any of that in your in the leaf piles. So when people put bags of leaves out at the curb and put it in nice clear plastic bags like this so you can actually see what's inside, I pick them up and I bring them back for my pile. It takes quite a bunch of leaves to do that. I actually had a lot more bags than this in here, but I also build a pile in my chicken coop. I put down a large base of wood chips, and then I cover that with leaves, and then every week, several times a week, I add green material that I collect from the local supermarket. And if you haven't seen my video on my step-by-step chicken composting, I'll link it right up here, wherever it is. And you can see what I do with that. But in the wintertime, I put a big carbon base at the bottom. Like I said, wood chips and leaves, and then add the greens on top. And then during the wintertime, as it freezes, I open it up. It provides a bit of warmth for the chickens as it breaks down, because there's heat in the center of those piles, just like a compost pile, a hot compost pile. So I do the same thing with the chickens. So a lot of the leaves that I had picked up went towards that. But now these are going to go to making my leaf mold. I'm back here in the utility area right alongside my greenhouse. And you can see my compost sifter stored away for the winter back there. But this is where I make my leaf mold, and I do it right in that compost bin right there. I used to make compost in it, but chickens make plenty of compost for me now, so I don't need that. So I use this to make leaf mold. And it's really just a simple process to do. I take off the lid, and as you can see, cleared it all out from all the leaf mold from last year. And what happens, you fill it up with the leaves, and over the course of the year, it breaks down. And I probably ended up with it about half full, a little bit more than half full, I guess, with the composted leaves in there. And that just makes a great mulch, a great fertilizer for the garden beds. And I also put it around the garden beds in the middle of my yard as well, and just continuously building up the soil to improve the soil So just going to take one of my bags of leaves here and dump it in. And I'll get my pitchfork, spread it all out. It's pretty wet now, so I don't have to wet them down anymore. But if you had dry leaves, you would definitely want to wet them, because it'll speed up and aid the decomposition of the leaves. Now, last year, what I also did was I'd kept my leaves kind of dry, not completely, but kind of dry, and I used my leaf vac, and I vacuumed them up, because it breaks up the leaves. Doesn't make it as fine of a mix as I'd like, but it does break them up. So the smaller the pieces that you have, the quicker everything will break down, and you'll get even a better leaf mold from that. These will break down fast enough over time. So now, as I said, I'll layer this out, add another bag on top of that, layer that out, and so forth. And I'll continue actually to collect leaves even after I fill this whole bin up, because during the winter they'll just compact down a little bit after a couple of weeks. So then I can add more leaves to the pile, so that by the beginning of the year I've got a completely full bin here, and can use that then to have it break down. What I do beginning in March or April of next year is I'll remove this front panel from the bin, and I'll actually turn over the bin, and I'll do that every month. I think that's what I did this year. I think it was every month. Yeah, because I was too lazy to do it any more than that. And you really don't even have to do that. I think it would take probably about 2 years if you just let it sit here. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to use it within a year's time. So every month, beginning, like I said, in March or April, I would come in. I would actually remove it, all the leaves I'd put into a wheelbarrow, actually 2 wheelbarrows, and then I would start adding it back in. So that whole process adds air and oxygen to the pile, again aiding in the speed of the decomposition. So I usually try to do it around the first of the month, only because it's easy to remember them. And if you don't get to it, it's not a big deal. And if you do it a little bit more, I'm trying to minimize the amount of work I have to do with it. By I guess the end of the summer, I just leave it alone and just let it decompose. Also, during the year, I add water to it to again keep it moist. Whenever I turn the pile, I add moisture to it just to make sure that it has enough moisture in it to continue breaking down. So those 4 bags filled it up only about halfway. And so I guess it was about halfway full then with the decomposed leaves that I got this year, after having filled it up, like I said, a couple of times to make sure that I started off the new year with a completely full bin. So those 4 bags gave me half. I'll go out and get a whole bunch more leaves. Also, when I clean up my own yard, I'll add them to the pile. And that's really all you have to do to make leaf mold. So the bin is filled now. Took about 3 or 4 more bags of leaves to fill it up. But I'm going to actually get one more, because there's still room in here, and I want to kind of mound it over the top because it will settle down. So leaf mold is a great resource for your soil, and something probably everyone can and should do, even in the smallest of yards. You can have a small area like this. This is maybe 3 foot by 3 foot square, and a little bit taller high. Right. But that's it. And it's a great amendment for your soil. So it's about a week after that last video, and as you can see, the level has gone down now, and all this in here is actually coffee grounds. I do add coffee grounds throughout the year, throughout the winter, I should say, and the year too. It's a source of nitrogen, a small source of nitrogen, so I figure it can't hurt the decomposition process and could probably aid it. But so what I've done now is I've vacuumed up some more leaves, a little bit shredded, not a lot, but a little bit, and I'm going to pour them on top. And like I said, just to keep it up at that top level there. Try and do this by hand. There we go. I'll probably end up putting even more leaves on here. I got a few areas in my yard where the leaves collect, so I'll end up vacuuming them up too over time. But by the end of the month, this will be completely filled, and I'll be ready for the winter decomposting. And then all throughout next year, the leaves will degrade and decompose, and we'll end up with the nice loam that I showed you with at the beginning. So for now, I'll just put this lid on top, put my little brick on there to keep the wind from blowing it out, and that will be the start of the new leaf mold pile. So just once again, just to show you, this is what it looks like a year later. All those leaves breaking down, and really not too much work. Like I said, people do the hard part for you, collecting the leaves and then putting them out at the curb. You just have to drive by and pick them up, and you just put them in your bin and let them sit there for a year. And literally just let them sit there if you want. It'd probably take you about 2 years to break down the leaves. But a year, like I said, I turn this stuff here about once a month for about 5 months, 6 months at most. No, it's about more like 5 months, 4 or 5 months. And it breaks down just fine. Now it'll sit in the bed, and it'll just continue to decompose into the soil. Come springtime, when I start planting, I'll just move the thing aside, make my little planting hole, and then just fill in around the plant. And that's it. Okay, thanks for watching.